Welcome to the channel, Scott's Garage HTX. Don't forget the HTX. And I'm off to go see, well, somebody help me tune the suspension on the two bikes. Basically, I'll get about, hey, what's up, Elton? Neighbor, how you doing? Doing real good. Sorry. And we get these two bikes tuned up on the suspension. The Ducati's too soft. That RSX is way too soft. And I can only do about 3/4 of the job because all the parts are in, springs, front springs, rear springs for every bike except for the R6. The rear spring is not in yet, so I don't have that. My purpose of this, if I'm going to make any content at all, basically, is this. The Ohlins suspension in a manufactured bike is supposedly different. I am told it's supposedly different than if you went to an Ohlins rep or bought straight from Ohlins. And I don't know. I don't say I have a hard time believing that, but that's what I have been told. So I'm hoping to kind of find out. I've got no scientific data on this. I've got nothing really, to tell you the truth. It's one of those things where, and I don't know if every manufacturer does that or not. So I don't know. I'm just going to try to learn more because that's interesting to me. That's very, very interesting to me if that is actually the case. Anyway, off to Dallas I go. Well, I'm back, up to Dallas and back in one day. And to get started, I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people about what I'm about to say. Something my wife says I have an immense amount of talent in doing. Yeah. But as the title suggests, I think if we go out and buy an Ohlins equipped manufactured bike off the showroom floor, we're getting ripped off. So start the hate mail now in the comments, bring them on in. I worked on the trade floor for 20 years and I've been called every name in the book. But hear me out before you do, all right? Because I've seen firsthand the difference between the Ohlins we get on a manufactured bike and the Ohlins we get when we buy out of the box and have somebody installed or install it yourself. First off, as this picture might show you, the difference between what we get on a manufactured bike and the Ohlins out of the box, you get billet castings down here. Now we'll get to this bike in a minute or so, but they are billet. Also, take a look at how shiny in the plating that is on the shock tube right around this region in that picture. I'm telling you, you put those side by side and they're going to look vastly different. The plating is much, much different. It's much thicker and just more and more gold. You can tell the quality. I haven't really touched on the real item of interest on this, and that's the internals in the shock tube itself. If I were to show you, and unfortunately I do not have it, but if I were to show you the difference and hold in my hands the internals from what we have in an Ohlins manufactured bike and Ohlins out of the box, you'd be amazed and you'd probably be upset yourself. My second argument is fitment and the spring rates that you can choose from out of the box. Believe the actual spring rates and the way the bikes are set up from the manufacturer account for like 160 to 100, maybe 185 pound rider. Well, that's not going to work for me. And if it doesn't work for you, when you buy Ohlins out of the box, you can select the spring rates you want. You fine tune the suspension for what you want to do and your own weight. The third item I'm going to cover is price. I believe the stock or the base model V2 and the Bayless edition that carries the Ohlins on the V2, the price difference is $4,400. If you go out to Ohlins and look, and maybe you can get better deals on this than I say, but just going out to Ohlins website, the Ohlins shock tubes and the rear shock are $4,100, a little in between $4,100 and $4,200. You can use the difference to have somebody install it or tune the suspension the way you want it to be. That's my argument. I think I win, but I'll take all comments, of course. Obviously, I'm not practicing when I preach on this bike. These are Showa tubes. They're cast down below. But what I have inside are Ohlins FKR internals. And there's two reasons I did that. One was to save some money. I didn't get the full-on shock tubes. but I have the internals of the FKRs inside. And two, I just didn't know any better at the time. I'm learning as I go on a bunch of this stuff, and you're learning with me, and you're experiencing it, and I'm relaying some stuff that I learned to you. You tell me what you think. Now, on this bike, we can start with the fronts. I'd like to start with the backs, but we're already talking about the fronts, so why don't we talk about the fronts? What I did when I first put on the Ohlins in the front is I put on 10.5 spring rate inside these shock tubes. And that has still felt a bit spongy. And after looking at some of the charts with my friend who works with the Ohlins people, it seems like we could go up a little bit higher and solve some of that feel that I have, basically. So what we did this week was put 11s inside there, and that's what the chart actually calls for. They have these charts that I think, I can't find them online. I think this is more proprietary stuff that's sent to people that work closely with Ohlins and work closely with racers. And I'm not going to show those charts. Those are proprietary to that's their business, so maybe even their livelihood. So I'm not going to show that, basically. Pay to play, all right? But after looking at the charts and my weight, and they're set up to where you have with gear and without gear. And after doing all these calculations, I needed an 11 in there. So that's what we did. It was too soft. Speaking of soft and travel and all of these things, what's inside these shock tubes here now, it has nitrogen inside some of the cartridges, and which it did not have before. And you can see by this picture here what that really does. You press down on the internals of those shock, and when it rebounds or compresses, it does so at a slower rate. If you didn't have those nitrogen cartridges in there, it would spring up really, really fast, or faster than what this rate is here. That kind of helps with the stability and the predictability of going through turns in the shocks. Speaking of the functionality of the shocks, and I'm going to regurgitate some stuff that you may already know, but I'm going to go out there and put it out there. I'll say it's the Scott tip, but it's really not. It's me regurgitating what I've learned over the last year, especially about suspension, some things I think are really, really interesting. You know the old zip tie trick, right? You put the zip tie in the shock tube and you see how much of the shock you're using. And you're using too much, you're using not enough. But what I've discovered is the first 50% of this tube right here is the operational use of the shock. The last 50% is how much air you have in the shock. So that's it. When you're going around the track, you're using this first 50% of the shock when it's going over bumps and all the other suspension travel it has. But when you're braking really hard and you're compressing that spring hard, all that weight's going forward as you come back from 170 miles an hour to 30 down, or however fast you're going to take turn 12 at Coda. That's when this tube gets really, really shocked, gets really, really compressed. And then you can tell where it's at. And if it's really, really low, if it's low down here, basically don't add spring, don't add valving or adjust valving, add oil. Now the exact opposite doesn't work. If the zip tie's way up here and you're not using a lot of the shock when you're braking, that might not be because of you've got too much oil in there. It might be because you're really just not braking as hard as the shock can take. So consider that, find out where you are before you actually add oil or take away oil. Find out where you are. And when you add or when you measure your oil, do it without the spring in there and do it without the spacer as well. Fish that spacer out. Best way to do that was with safety wire if the shock is still on the bike. Also, when you're taking this down, another Scott tip for you, it's okay to go ahead and loosen these shock tubes up a bit, but don't loosen them up all the way, right? The way this threading is, 1 revolution is 1 millimeter of travel, basically. But when you get down to the very end of the threads on these shock tubes, have somebody, it's maybe a 3-person job, lift up on the bike and take all that weight off, because if you have all that weight on those last little revolutions of those threading, you can strip out the threadings because they're very thin, and you can take those out. It's just a little bit of Scott tip for you and what I've learned when we're going through this whole process. Moving to the rear, you can tell that the shock that's on there now and the shock that came off this bike are vastly different. I have independent settings for compression and rebound, while this only has a soft hard screw on it. So that's a lot different. Internals are different as well. Now, what I had before, let me set this down, please. Oh, what I had before when I originally set this up was an 80 spring. What I have on there now is 100. That's 4 bumps up, 85, 90, 95, 100. So quite a bit in the move, travel forward, and the spring rate I have on this stuff right here. The other thing I would suggest would be not to put on used springs. Don't buy springs from eBay or anything like that. And here's why. I'm going to show you. This spring came out of the box at 170 millimeters in length, and the pre-tension on it is 17 millimeters. Now, I know this spring came out of the boxes. I measured it when it was put on, was the same, 170 millimeters. And now, what is it after we took off the bike and I've been on, I don't know how many track days? It is 166 millimeters. This steel that this is made out of, silicone steel, I don't know what it's called. It doesn't have that kind of memory, basically. And we compress it, it does, and you take it off, it doesn't go all the way back to where it was before. That can kind of interrupt some of your settings and make it difficult to get your sag right and some of the compression right and all your settings right. So I don't suggest that you use an used spring. Just unfortunately throw them away. Just, I don't know. Your thoughts, again, very welcome. Tell me what you think. I have 33 millimeters of sag, in total sag, in the rear end of this bike, and the clicks I have on the rebound and compression is 18 on rebound and 16 on compression. And the way that works, I think clockwise is all the way tight, and you back it off, because as you back off the valving, it looks like a golf tee. Show you a picture right over here. And as you back it off, that's when how you're controlling the flow of the oil through the valving inside the shock. The fronts are the opposite. There's a needle that goes down inside there that controls the oil flow for the valving. And I have that set at 14 compression and 16 on the rebound. That's what I did this weekend, is I went up to Dallas and set this all up. I've got a half a mind to put on the street tires and wheels and take this thing out. Because if you'll notice, the garage looks a little bit empty. And that's because the BMW went boom, and I mean boom. I was taken out on a Sunday ride, and did you guys know that there's a recall on the 22 BMW S1000R's rocker arms? Well, I didn't. I bought the bike secondhand from another dealership, and they're not hooked up to the BMW websites or their information, and I hadn't taken it into the BMW. Long story short, I was going down the highway, and all of a sudden the bike's attitude and sound changed drastically, and I thought, did I lose a chain? What's going on? Had to push. I was on the highway. I had to push the bike at least, I don't know, a mile. Maybe it was a mile and I mean 3/4 of a mile back down the road into the service road off to the side. I was covered in sweat. And it started, but it was running on like 3 cylinders. The good news is there is that recall, and everything is being fixed underneath that recall. Bad news is I have no idea when I'm going to get it back. And I'm dying without a bike. It's my therapy. Probably yours too. You guys keep on keeping on. We'll catch you next time.